Hi everybody, Patrick here from EscapeRoomElectronics.com and PaintballProps.com. Today I'm going to talk about the VTAG sensor boards, which act to pick up paintball hits and airsoft pellet hits in the multi-program paintball and airsoft target practice system. So each of these VTAG sensor boards daisy chain together, either directly or via USB cables. And I'm going to talk today about how they mount together back to the main control board, and I'm going to talk about how to mount them to your targets. So let's get a closer look at one of these VTAG sensor boards. Each target that you want to implement in either your indoor or outdoor target practice system will require one of these VTAG sensor boards. There's a female socket on the left for USB and male on the right, and there's a little 2-pin header up here. On the top it's labeled VIB for vibration, and on the left you'll see red and black, and that corresponds to the sensor itself that connects to the VTAG sensor board. The piezoelectric sensor that comes with each VTAG sensor board has a red wire and a black wire. We want to connect the red wire to the left, labeled red, and BLK on the right, labeled, sorry, the black wire to the right, labeled BLK, and then our sensor board is complete. We just need to mount it to our target. I'm going to go through a few different methods of mounting, and I'll also talk on indoor versus outdoor mounting. As you can see, I've got a different method right here. But for this one, let's just say we're going to mount to this piece of wood. This is obviously not a target, but let's say for the sake of argument, we're going to mount to this piece of wood, and let's say we're using this in an indoor setting where it will not be exposed to rain. The first thing we have to do is we have to adhere the sensor to the board, and we're going to use hot glue for that, specifically because piezo sensor's worst enemy is moisture. So to completely protect it, we're going to adhere the sensor to the board, or to the piece of wood, using a hot glue gun. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to take my hot glue gun. I would have marked where exactly I want to put the sensor, but I know it's right here, so I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and make a nice big blip of it. Now I'm going to take my sensor and make sure that it is saturated but pushed down to the board. Now I can wait a little bit, sorry about that, I can wait a little bit before I do the rest, or I can just go ahead and finish it right now. So now what I want to do is I want to saturate the top, and this is just to protect the entire sensor from moisture. So as long as you're neat about it, you won't even notice that it's there once it's done. So it is saturated. I've got every last little bit. And lastly, what you want to do is you want to just get a little bit on the cables, so that if they're ever pulled, they're not going to rip off the sensor themselves. Now you can always replace this sensor at any point, so don't be worried if you break it. The set comes with extra sensor cables. So now let's wait for that to dry. Now that the glue is dry, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to mount the VTAG board to the wooden target. Now again, keep in mind, this is for indoor applications. You're going to want to do the second method for an outdoor application. So what I've got here is I've got 4 little standoffs, and the reason we're going to stand them off is because we don't want for the USB cables to have problems connecting if they're mounted directly to the board. Now if the VTAG board was mounted to something this long, where access to both sides was easy, we wouldn't have to worry about using standoffs. We can mount them directly to the board. But now what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that this cable can plug in right here. It has enough room to plug in right here. It doesn't matter if you plug it this way or this way, as long as the cable can plug into the correct connector. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these standoffs and take some small screws and mount it into place. All done, and now this target is ready to go 100% and doesn't ever need to be moved or changed until you want to change up your indoor target practice system. So now let's plug in our USB cables to make sure that there's enough room. And as you can see, there's plenty of room for me to plug in my USB cables for the daisy chain. So that's indoor. We're all done. We're ready to mount our next target in the daisy chain for either Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. And for more information on Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but there's also another video that you can see below talking more about the connections on the main board. So now let's talk about outdoor options. Okay, so let's say that we're talking outdoor. We're going to mount this and the target itself is either going to come in at the end of the day, or when it rains, or it's going to stay stationary overnight. It's going to stay where it is. We're talking about barrels, tires, what have you. So first things first, let's pretend, for instance, this is a barrel. What we're going to do is we're going to adhere the sensor to the barrel just as we did for the other option. Now here's where some creativity comes into play. This is what I've currently got set up at Marked Paintball. Obviously these are kept in the box with the control boards at the end of the day, and these are left here. Now at the end of the workday, what I do is I take a piece of tape, preferably duct tape, and I don't need to duct tape this because it's already sealed. And I just duct tape this down so that the metal on the connectors don't rust. But otherwise you can just leave it in the rain as long as there's a piece of tape covering the connector, and when you're ready to hook it back up, rip it off, and you're ready to connect it back to the VTAG board. Now in Marked Paintball, all of the barrels have the rough side of Velcro strapped to the board, because the rough side isn't going to just get moldy and gross, whereas I think the soft side will. So I reserved the soft side for the VTAG boards, and I've got them mounted to project boxes from Amazon. Now the reason why I have these on top as opposed to inside the waterproof case is because I have to drill holes, making it no longer waterproof or moisture-proof. And you could do that, but the problem is that you have to fix your USB cables to it. And I like having the freedom of removing these when the weather's looking bad, or when at the end of the day. I like being able to just go rip it off, put it back in the box, and tape the sensor down for when I want to place it back. Now you might have a much better solution to this, but for the sake of argument, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this barrel has the rough side of this Velcro on it, and snap. And like magic, plunk, and it's on there. It's not going anywhere. It just needs to support the weight of this connector, which is nothing. This is a version 1 VTAG board, by the way. We will not be using this. This is your set will come with the version 2 VTAG board. And now that it's nice there, nice and solid, I plug in my cables for the daisy chain. And I'm ready to go to the next board. And at the end of the day, or when the weather's starting to look a little bit fuzzy, I simply remove it. One more thing to note is each set will come with a base of 10 VTAG boards and 10 sensors. But of those 10 VTAG boards, there will be 3 with a little red sticker on it, on the chip. And what that means is that is an end. That is one that's meant specifically for the end of a tier. So the last in a daisy chain per tier. So if you've got all 3 tiers set up, each of these VTAG boards will have to be on the end, because it's got slightly different programming, specifically for a couple programs. Now, so that is very important. So let's pretend that this is one tier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to daisy chain them together, and I'm going to connect it back to tier 1. Each tier on the main board requires a male end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first USB cable, and I'm going to connect it to the first target in the tier. Again, we're pretending that these are separate targets, and you can have as many as you'd like on a tier, up to 10 or more, but the set will only comes with 10 VTAG boards, so you're stuck with 2 tiers of 3 and 1 of 4, or 2 sets of 4 and 1 of 2, however you'd like it, as long as one of the red and VTAG boards is the last in the tier. So the next target, I will connect this VTAG board via daisy chain to this last one in the sequence. So now I'm going to connect the starting USB cable back to the control board. I open up my control board box. If you look in the bottom, I've got some outdoor targets mounted to Amazon project boxes, and I've got my main control board. Let me zoom in for a better look. Okay, so we've got the 3 boards. This is all will all be explained in another video, but what we've got here is tier 1, the USB for tier 1, which is the lowest value, should be the closest targets to you. The middle tier, tier 2, which is the middle range targets, which will be further away than tier 1, and tier 3, which is actually worth 3, it should be the farthest targets. Now these are primarily used in Program 3 and Program 2. Program 3 being all target mode, where you have to hit all targets once in order to end the game, where it times you. And Program 2, target practice mode, where you hit as many targets as you can and it accumulates your points at the end so that you can compete with each other. So again, if we connect our daisy chain here, this is tier 1, any of our targets that are hit will gain 1 point. If we connect them here, 2 points. If we connect them here, 3 points in the daisy chain. So we've created a daisy chain of 2. Let's hook it up. And we're connected. So now we've got 2 in our daisy chain for tier 1. Now you only need all 3 tiers connected for program 3, which is all target mode. Even in target practice mode, which is program 2, you only need 1 tier. It doesn't matter if you use 1, 2, or 3. However, this is only worth 1 point, 2 points, and 3 points. So if you're just going to use one large array, or rather one large daisy chain of targets, and you want them to be 1 point for every hit, then you're just going to want to use tier 1. You don't have to use all 3. So this is not for sale yet. However, all of the beta testing has been done at Marked Paintball in Ontario, Canada, just west of Ottawa on Highway 7. It will be available soon at escaperoomelectronics.com and paintballprops.com, and of course that will show you what you'll get. Check out the links below, as I'll be adding video links if you want to know more about the system. So just for the sake of adding something fun to the video, here's a few people using tier 1 only on 4 barrels at Marked Paintball. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Get ready for some target practice. 3, 2, 1, go. Game over. Thank you for playing.
Nice shooting.